Hey, this is Nick with NoteTracks, and today I'm going to show you how you can use NoteTracks to help you collaborate on your podcast, work with editors and co-hosts, and deliver the best episodes that you can. I'm going to be using an episode of a recent podcast we did in our project today before we send it out for editing. So I'm going to walk you through both the process that we have as we prepare episodes with notes and all that sort of stuff, and then sending it out to an editing team for those final touches. So to get started, we're going to click New Project here on the dashboard and give it a name. Today, keep it simple, NoteTracks Podcast 1. All right, once we're inside of our project, we're going to need to add some audio, and I can do that either by clicking on Add Track here, which will let you drag and drop audio files right here into the window, or connect your Dropbox or Google Drive as well. I know that sometimes big, long podcast episodes can be kind of chunky, so if you're trying to keep those big files off of your computer in Dropbox or Google Drive, that can be a good option. But for today, we are just going to drag and drop an audio file right here into our project. Now that our audio is in here, the first thing that I like to do is actually zoom out on the track. So NoteTracks by default will start kind of that mid-zoom level for you to be able to get granular, but I like to zoom all the way out so that I can see the full length of the episode here in front of me. This episode, I think, is coming up on about 45 minutes or so. So I won't bore you with the entire thing here, but let me just play a small portion of it so you can hear what we're dealing with and what those notes look like. Here, you can do that here up in the transport controls by clicking play.
Cool. Yeah, man. Well, thanks for taking the time to chat, man. Checked out your works. Pretty awesome stuff.
All right. We can hear that it was a podcast done over Zoom, and we're actually going to make a note about that here in a second. You can obviously fast forward, speed up, and jump back and forward here with the transport controls, and then there's also a loop function which we will cover here in a few minutes. So I need to leave some notes for the editor, so let's jump into doing that. I can move my playhead around by clicking here on the time codes, and I actually want to leave a comment right here at the beginning of the episode. You can do that either by double clicking or by clicking on New Comment here on the sidebar. I want to make a note about the quality of the audio. So I'm going to say this was recorded on Zoom. Is there anything we can do to tidy it up? Obviously, there's some background noise. It sounds like a phone call. It'd be great if we could EQ out some of those frequencies. All right, so got my first note in there, and I've already listened through this episode, so I kind of know the ballparks of where the rest of these notes are going to go. For our second note, I'm going to leave a comment here right in the middle of the episode. And for about 23 minutes out to the half-hour mark, there were some things in the conversation that we actually can't include. Our guest was talking about a new product that he's working on, and they actually decided to delay the announcement of it. So we're going to leave a comment here to pull that out of our episode. Can we remove the section here talking about the new product? All right, super simple. Now, given that this is a podcast, we have a couple of ad reads that I want to make note of that need to be inserted here into the episode before we ship it out. And I'm going to use the stamp tool here in the sidebar to drag and drop some stamps where the ad reads are going to go. So I usually like to have the first ad read about a third of the way through the show there, and then another one here right before we get to the outro and the credits. Next, I'm going to leave just a little bit of context of what these microphones mean by dragging over some custom text fields. I'm going to put in ad read and do another one here at the end. Ad read number 2. All right, final thing before I ship this over to the editor is I need to be able to include a folder that has all of these assets in there. The ad reads, the full episode, that Zoom call, the video that we recorded for the episode, some bumpers, all of that stuff to be able to pull this episode together. So I'm going to share a Dropbox link here just by creating a new comment at the top of this project and saying, here are all of the assets, and putting in a Dropbox link that they can then click on. All right, I think it's about time that we share this project with our editor. We do that by using this big green button here in the top right, it says share project. Now you can share a project in one of two ways. The first is obviously by copying a link and just shooting it over via email or however you communicate with them in Slack, WhatsApp, whatever it might be. But today we're going to invite them by email. gmail.com. Kristen is going to get these files and be able to start editing the project. Now I can set editing permissions here by edit, comment, or view. This can be helpful depending on who's viewing your project. If you want to share something top secret and you don't want other people to be able to get in there and make any edits. When I hit send here, Kristen is going to get an email invitation to join this project. And if Kristen doesn't have an account on NoteTracks, she's going to be prompted to create one. And a question that we get a lot is, if somebody is invited to my project, do they also have to have a paid NoteTracks account? The answer is no. Anybody that has a free NoteTracks account is going to be able to get in, comment, leave replies, leave notes. The only thing they won't be able to do is create new projects of their own, but they'll be able to fully interact with your projects and help you get your work done. So I'm going to click send. Kristen's going to get that email letting her know that I have some notes in here on NoteTracks for her, and we'll pick it back up from Kristen's perspective as we finish up the edit on this episode. All right, now we are here in Kristen's view, our editor, who's going to be taking a look at our podcast. And like I said, Kristen got an email letting her know that we had some notes ready for her to come in here and check out. So let's jump into it. Here on Kristen's dashboard, we can see that the project that we created is already here for her to take a listen to. All right, now that we are inside of the project, we can see everything is loaded up. I'm going to do the same thing that I did before. I like to zoom out, see that whole waveform, and then I'm going to show you some quick ways that you can jump between some of these comments here in a second. The first thing I want to draw attention to is this collaboration feature. So here, because Kristen is now logged in and we still have the project open from when we were sending these notes over to Kristen, it will show up here at the top of the dashboard to show that you are collaborating in real time. So any comments that I leave here now as Kristen will show up in real time and vice versa. So you can share audio files back and forth. Everything is happening in the flow so that you're not going back and forth kind of over email or sending links back and forth. Everything will update here in real time. All right, so the first note that we see here is, this was recorded on Zoom. Is there anything we can do to tidy that up? I'm going to hit reply here on this comment. Say, of course there is. Easy enough, right? Noise reduction is part of producing podcasts. Now I see here this folder with all of the assets. I'm going to click that, open that up in a new tab. Here I see a comment about talking about a new product. Now I am familiar with this section. Kristen was in the room when we recorded this episode, so it's not really going to be a big deal. But I'm curious about specifically what time code we are talking about here. So I'm going to use the loop function to really pinpoint where this conversation starts and stops around this new product that we need to take out. So I'm going to hit the loop function and then drag the markers to where I want to loop. So loop is turned on. I'm going to hit play. I know that it's somewhere in this area. We're just going to listen to it for a sec and see if we can figure it out. All right, it looks like we are in the middle of the conversation. So I'm going to say that it starts back here a little bit and ends a little sooner. I won't bore you with listening through our full podcast here, I promise. Now that I have kind of figured out where these things are, I'm going to leave a comment and say new product talk starts here. Now, when I am ready to start my editing process, I have a couple of options. I can either download all of the comments that were left here with time codes attached to them, which might be easy to open up in a notepad or something on your computer while you have editing software open. Additionally, you can also download the audio file here directly from NoteTracks to the computer. So you can edit completely offline, get some of that info about the ad reads, the new product talk, all of that into an editor, and then ship back a new version. All right, so just jumping around here a little bit, we're back here on the My Projects page. Now, in my own workflow, I like to keep things organized by keeping note-taking projects kind of separate from editing projects. So the client will send over notes, we'll get in there, we'll get messy with a whole bunch of comments and notes and feedback and stamps and all that fun stuff like we did earlier in this video. And then when it's time to ship over an edited version, I like to create a brand new project called Edit and then use that to send things back over. So we're going to call this NoteTracks Podcast 1 Edit. And then in the interest of time, I've gone ahead and imported our edited podcast version into this new project and then thrown in some final comments and thoughts as well. Now, before I send this back over to our other selves, I want to draw attention to a couple organizational tools that I think are really cool inside of NoteTracks that you can use as well. So the first thing is that you have the ability to tag and color code your tracks. So as you start adding multiple tracks in here, you can use some of these functions like tagging this green to say that this episode is good to go, or changing the color of the track itself to illustrate an idea. I know that when I'm including little backing tracks or transition sounds in different versions of this, sometimes it's nice to color code which ones have certain songs in them versus others, just to keep things moving along. Something else that is pretty cool is the ability to reorder by track number. So here, this isn't really an issue, but if I have multiple tracks in here, it'll obviously automatically renumber them. But if I change this to number 2 or number 3, I delete some of the other versions. What I can do is sort by the track number then. So as you're adding things, deleting things, changing the numbers around, you can sort by track number as well to always have the most recent project at the top or the bottom. And a couple more things that I want to draw attention to before we finish this project up. There's a solo and mute button here. So NoteTracks will play any audio that you have here concurrently, just like it happens in your DAW, digital audio workstation, or when you're editing a video. The audio kind of stacks on top of itself. So hitting play will play all of the tracks simultaneously. That can be helpful, like I said, if you're A/Bing different music cue ideas or stuff like that, different intros, different ad reads, you want to A/B test between the two of them. You can have multiple tracks playing at the same time, but sometimes if there are multiple tracks in here, it's helpful to mute stuff or solo tracks before you send it out. And then lastly, as we have these comments here, over a big audio file like this, it can be a little tough to keep organized with what comment you're looking at. So you can actually use Command and the arrow keys to jump back and forth between all of the comments as well, to kind of jump forward and make it a little bit easier to move the playhead to exactly where the next comment is. All right, let's say that this project is done. I'm ready to share this new edit back with ourselves on the other side of the wall. This time I'm just going to use the copy link function. And then again, change these editing permissions to can edit so that when we shoot this link over, we'll be able to add tracks, delete tracks, kind of have the full gamut of all the functionality. So we're going to send this project via email, and I think that we did a pretty good job today getting this podcast edited and getting a final episode done to launch, hopefully upload to Anchor, get it onto iTunes, all that good stuff. So thanks so much for hanging out. Hopefully this was helpful. And if you ever have any questions about NoteTracks while you're using it, we have an always-on chatbot here down in the corner that our team is always monitoring. And you can, of course, email us at support@notetracks.com.